Long ago, in the heart of Kamoro, where the sun beat down with the anger of a scorned ancestor, there lived a man named Obasi. Quiet in his ways, gentle in his speech, and known for his wisdom, Obasi was respected, yet easy to overlook. A crowd. He could pass like a breeze, seen by none, felt by few. It wasn't magic that made him seem invisible, it was his size. Though Obasi was in his 30s, one glance would have you swearing he was barely grown. His face held the softness of youth, and his body, narrow and boyish, lacked the presence many expected from a man. Since childhood, he had always been the smallest in every gathering. Children mocked him, calling him names like Kio after the chirping tree bird with tiny wings. Yet those who laughed too long often found themselves embarrassed, for Obasi's mouth was sharp and his mind sharper. He may have been small, but his wisdom towered. So it was that people in Kamoro came to honor Obasi. His words solved disputes, calmed hot tempers, and brought comfort during hard seasons. But there was one decision of his that made the village whisper, not with admiration but with pure confusion. His wife, her name was Abeni, and where Obasi was quiet and slight, Abeni was thunder and stone. She was a mountain of a woman. If she stood among warriors, you would mistake her for their general. Her arms bulged with strength, her back stood straight like a spear, and her voice could wake the gods. When she walked, the air itself seemed to shift out of her way. The day Obasi introduced her as his future bride, the gossip drums began to beat across Kamoro. "Have you seen that woman?" hissed Mama Adoka, the fishmonger, while scaling tilapia, at the roadside. "She is built like a rhino, I swear. That poor boy, he'll disappear in her shadow." "He must be under a spell," another woman replied, eyes wide. "Either that or love has made him lose his senses. Love is blind, they say, but this one is also deaf and mad." When Obasi gathered his friends to share the news of his engagement, mouths fell open. "You mean she?" asked his friend. Seymour blinking hard. "Yes, my brother, she is my chosen one, my queen," Obasi said with pride, placing a gentle hand on Abeni's broad back. Jabari, another friend, let out a cough and tried to hide his grin. "Brother, are you marrying a wife or hiring a bodyguard?" Everyone burst out laughing. But Obasi only smiled at Abeni and said, "Love does not count inches. It weighs hearts," people mocked. But Obasi didn't care, he was happy, and at first their marriage was sweeter than ripe mangoes in the harmattan sun. Abeni treated him with respect. She served him meals with both hands. She listened when he spoke. And Obasi believed he had found not just a wife but peace, until the changes came. They were quiet at first, like a drum softly beaten in the distance. Abeni, who once called him my king, began to say little man with a smirk. Her laughter at his stories dried up. When she placed food before him, she did it with a clatter, as if dropping it before a stray dog. One evening, Obasi came home with hunger dancing in his belly. The smell of spicy iba and egusi soup filled the room. He smiled, sat at the table, and waited. Abeni came out, her face hard. She didn't greet him. She sat and began to eat alone. Obasi frowned. "Abeni, where's my portion?" Without looking up, she waved lazily toward the kitchen. "Go and get it yourself." His heart thudded. He didn't understand, but he told himself, maybe she's just tired. So he stood, served himself, and kept quiet. The next day, it grew worse. Abeni rolled her eyes when he spoke. She looked at him like one looks at a housefly too slow to kill. Still, Obasi told himself, every marriage has seasons. This too will pass. He did not know that he was stepping into a storm. One quiet Saturday, he woke early, like always, to prepare morning tea for both of them. He brewed the tea, added a pinch of ginger just how she liked it, and waited. When Abeni entered, she yawned, stretched, and frowned at the table. "What's this?" she barked. "Tea, my love," Obasi replied, smiling. She lifted the cup, sipped, and spat it out with a growl. The cup flew from her hand, crashing against the wall. "What foolishness is this?" she roared. Obasi jumped. "Abeni, why?" "This tastes like gutter water. Am I a beggar to drink plain tea? Where's the milk? Where's the honey? But I made it the same way I always do." Slap. Obasi's face twisted. Silence filled the room. He pressed his hand against his cheek, now hot with pain. "Why?" he whispered. "Why would you strike me?" "Because I'm tired of your nonsense," Abeni snapped. "Next time, make something decent." She grabbed her wrapper, took her phone, and walked out, leaving Obasi sitting alone, with silence and the sting of shame. That morning, something inside him broke, not loudly, not all at once, but quietly, like dry bark beneath a foot. Abeni's anger became fire, not the small kind one uses to roast maize, but the kind that devours houses and hearts. And the worst part, she didn't need a reason anymore. If Obasi spoke too loudly, Abeni would glare. If he greeted her in the wrong tone, she would raise her hand. If he coughed while she was annoyed, he'd feel her foot against his ribs. And if she was simply having a bad day, Obasi's body became her drum. But what made it worse wasn't just the bruises, it was that the whispers had begun. The neighbors were noticing. One weary evening, Obasi returned home early from the carpentry shop. His back ached, his throat was dry, and all he wanted was to eat and sleep. He opened the wooden door of their home gently, hoping not to disturb her. Abeni sat on the worn-out couch, scrolling through her phone, her face blank. As he stepped in, she looked up sharply. "Where are you crawling from?" she asked. Obasi forced a smile. "From work, my wife," she scoffed. "Work, that hole you vanish to every day, you call that work? Maybe they hired you to make their stools feel taller." Obasi swallowed the sting and walked to the dining area. "Have you eaten?" he asked softly. "Of course. Do I look like someone waiting for a dwarf to feed me?" She snapped. He rubbed his head. "What about me? Is there anything left?" She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Am I your mother now? Should I rock you and sing lullabies too? Go and beg the trees outside for food?" He kept silent and went to the kitchen. A pot of leftover matoke and beans sat cold on the firestone. He scooped a little into a bowl and began to eat. He had barely chewed twice when thwack pain exploded at the back of his head. He saw sparks. He turned to find Abeni clutching a thick wooden spoon, her face like a storm. "You useless creature. Must you chew like a goat?" Obasi blinked. "You hit me because I was eating?" "Yes, and if you don't stop that noise, I'll toss that bowl on your foolish head." Obasi bit his tongue, lowered his head and ate in silence. That night passed without peace, and the following one wasn't better. Another evening, after bathing under the backyard drum, Obasi walked into their room drying his head with a towel. Abeni stood by the bed, arms folded like a village chief waiting to discipline a thief. "You used my towel," she growled. Obasi stopped. "Which one?" "The pink one. The one I said never to touch." He looked at the towel in his hand. "It was pink. I'm sorry, I didn't realize." Slap! His head whipped to the side. "Why, Abeni, why would you slap?" "Because you're a foolish goat," she roared. He raised his hands. "I didn't know. Please, I swear it won't happen again." "Oh, now you're defending yourself," she bellowed. "You think because you're a man, you can talk." Back? Third slap, louder than the rest. Next door, Mamau whispered to her husband, "Hey, this is not marriage, this is war." That night, Obasi lay hungry and hurting, but not from wounds alone. His spirit had begun to bruise. The next morning, as he tiptoed out to work, Mamito, the old widow who sold firewood, waved him over. "Obasi, my child, come." He bowed his head. "Good morning, Mama." She looked around and lowered her voice. "Is it true what we hear? Is your wife hitting you?" Obasi froze. "Who told you that?" She raised her brow. "My son, we have ears. Just yesterday we heard her call you a rat and tell you to sleep outside." He sighed. "It's just small things, Mama." Mamito placed both hands on her wide waist. "If a small thing gives you a swollen eye, it's no longer small." Obasi laughed nervously and tried to cover the side of his face. "I can manage. Thank you for your concern." She shook her head. "Just don't let yourself die in that house." One Saturday, they went to Kamoro's main market. As usual, Abeni stomped 5 steps ahead while Obasi followed like a forgotten servant. When they reached the vegetable stall, she pointed to a heap of tomatoes. "How much?" she asked sharply. 2,000 shillings per kilo, the seller replied. Abeni turned to Obasi, eyes blazing. "Well, where's the money?" Obasi blinked. "Which money?" she snapped. "The money. Are you deaf?" "I thought you were." "The one carrying it?" She didn't respond. She just swung her hand and slapped right across his face, right there. In the middle of Kamoro market, everything stopped, even the chickens. A young boy tugged his mother's wrapper. "Mama, why is that big woman beating her small son?" Obasi's ears rang. He touched his cheek, stunned. The market women gasped, waiting for him to react. He did nothing. Disappointment filled the air. Men of today," one seller muttered. "See this one. Even lizards have more pride." A butcher laughed from his stall. "This one, he's no husband, he's her handbag." Obasi wanted to sink into the soil, but Abeni was not finished. She grabbed his collar and shook him like a stubborn puppy. "Bring the money, you useless thing. I forgot my wallet at home," he stammered. She sighed, turned to the seller, and said loudly, "Forgive him. My little boy forgot his lunch money today, little boy." The crowd erupted in laughter. Obasi's shame was now a public story. At home, things got worse. In their compound, the men had heard every slap, every insult. They never helped. They only chuckled. One evening, Obasi returned with a small bag of groceries, walking quietly past a group of men seated on a bench. As usual, he avoided their eyes, but today they weren't quiet. Lucky, one of the loudest men in the compound, cupped his hands and called out, "Obasi! Come, my brother." Obasi hesitated. "I'm tired today, Lucky, maybe tomorrow." "Stop that!" Another man, Kato, shouted, waving him over. "Come, let us talk like real men." Obasi sighed and walked toward the group. They were gathered. Outside, seated on old benches under a neem tree, chewing roasted maize and laughing with mouths wide open. "Obasi, my friend," said Jabali, grinning. "How was today's round of beatings?" The men burst into laughter. Obasi forced a weak smile. "You people like to laugh too much." An elder among them wiped tears from his eyes. "But truly, my son," he said between chuckles, "every evening we hear bam pow from your house. Is it wrestling you signed up for?" They roared again. Tahir, the tallest of the men, built like a baobab tree, shook his head. "Tell us the truth, Obasi. Did you marry a woman or a warrior from the king's army?" Obasi shifted, visibly uncomfortable. "My brothers," he began slowly. "Abeni is my wife. Yes, she has a strong temper, but I believe she will change." Kato raised one eyebrow. "Change? Are you waiting for a royal decree before she changes?" The men laughed once more, louder this time. The elder leaned closer. "Let me give you some wisdom, my son. A woman like that doesn't understand sweet words. You must show her who is the head of the house." The others nodded quickly. "Yes, teach her discipline. Just one slap, Obasi, that's all it takes for her to learn." Tahir slapped his palm playfully. "If I had a woman like that, she would have learned obedience on the wedding night." Obasi listened in silence. Then he shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "I can't do that." The laughter died down. The men exchanged confused looks. "Why?" Kato asked, squinting. "Are you afraid of her?" Obasi shook his head again. "I'm not afraid of her, I'm afraid for her." The group blinked in silence. "What are you saying?" asked Jabali, frowning. Obasi rubbed his forehead. "She believes I'm weak because I don't fight back. But the truth is, if I ever lift a hand against her, she might not survive it." There was silence. Then came the loudest laughter yet. Kato nearly fell off the bench. "Listen to this, man. You the same Obasi who gets slapped daily like a village drum. Now you want to tell us you can destroy her." Obasi remained calm. "I know my strength, and I know my wife. She's not as unbreakable as she acts. I believe she will change. I choose patience." Kato rolled his eyes. "All right, continue believing. Meanwhile, we'll enjoy the nightly drama, free entertainment." Obasi rose to his feet. "Good night, brothers." He walked away, their laughter still echoing behind him. A few days later, after another bruising night, Obasi dragged himself to work, his jaw still aching from Abeni's latest outburst. That evening, as he passed through the compound, the same group of men sat waiting, but this time there were no greetings. Kato stood up and dramatically said, "Brothers, please, let us observe a moment of silence." The men bowed their heads solemnly. "For a fallen soldier," someone added. Obasi, the first man in Kamoro to become a housewife while still being called husband. Tahir wiped fake tears. Even my 7-year-old niece is braver than you. Their laughter tore through the air. But Obasi said nothing. He walked past them, eyes down, ears burning. Inside, he sat alone, chest tight with shame. When will this end? He thought. Will Abeni ever change? One night, after yet another fight, Obasi sat hunched over on the cold floor, cradling his ribs. Abeni had just finished kicking him for breathing too loudly during her favorite show. "Why are you like this?" she snapped. "Even a rat makes more impact than you." Obasi looked up at her, pain in his voice. "Abeni, do you even love me?" she scoffed. "Love? You think you deserve love?" Those words cut deeper than any slap. Obasi turned away, climbed into bed silently, and faced the wall. He didn't argue, he didn't cry. He simply accepted what his life had become. Until one afternoon changed everything. At his workplace, where he was known as the senior supervisor, Obasi believed he still commanded some respect. That illusion was about to break. He approached his junior, Ndoro, and handed him a stack of reports. "Please file these before closing time," he instructed. Ndoro leaned back in his chair and said lazily, "File them yourself." Obasi blinked. "Excuse me?" Ndoro stood up, arms folded across his chest. "You're barking orders here? When even in your own house you're the pet." Heads turned. The office froze. Obasi's heart skipped. "Ndoro, what are you saying?" Ndoro shrugged. "Oh, don't pretend. Everyone here knows. Your wife throws you around like a rag. You're only a man at work, but at home you're a mouse. A beaten, quiet mouse." Laughter erupted across the office like thunder. Obasi felt heat rush to his face. He stood there, frozen as shame soaked into his bones. He didn't reply. He turned away and left, silently. That evening, Obasi walked home like a man carrying a curse. The dust on his sandals couldn't match the weight in his heart. "Even my workers mock me now," he thought. "Have I become a story, a joke, a walking shame?" He opened the gate slowly, hoping Abeni would be distracted or asleep, but she was waiting. "You, useless man," she began. The moment Obasi stepped inside the house, Abeni's voice pierced the air. "Where have you been?" He paused, exhausted from the day. "I was at work," he muttered. "Work?" she snapped. "Is that what you call that joke you go to every day? You're just embarrassing yourself. Do you even know people are laughing at you in this entire town? Are you still a man?" Obasi flinched. He had hoped for peace just for one evening. "Abeni, please, not today. Not today." She shrieked, stepping closer. Before he could defend himself, her hand flew. Slap! Then a punch landed squarely on his chest. Obasi stumbled. As if that wasn't enough, she grabbed his shirt collar and shook him violently. "I am talking to you. You tiny rat, speak when I'm speaking." Obasi closed his eyes, and in that very moment, something inside him snapped, without thinking, without planning. His hand moved. Before he could stop himself, smack, his palm struck Abeni across the face. She froze. Her eyes widened, legs unsteady. She staggered backward, then fell hard to the floor. Obasi's heart dropped. "Abeni?" She didn't move. He dropped to his knees beside her. "Abeni, wake up! I didn't mean to. Please!" But she lay still. Obasi's breath left him. Panic rushed in. "Oh, no, 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 no." He stumbled to his feet and rushed outside. "Help, somebody help me." Doors creaked open. A few neighbors peeked out. But when they saw Abeni's still body on the floor behind him, they quickly shut their doors and disappeared inside. The compound that was always full of voices became as silent as a graveyard. Same people who told Obasi to act like a man had vanished. He cried out again, "Please! She's not waking up. Help me!" His chest tightened with fear. "They told me to fight back. Now they've left me alone, with no one to turn to." He lifted Abeni onto his back and ran to the hospital. "Please, God," he whispered breathlessly. "Let her live, don't let her die." At the hospital, he paced outside the emergency room, wringing his hands. Then a group of young men stormed in. Their faces were sharp with anger. That's him, one of them, Kenga, pointed. Another. Lutalo sneered. So you finally did it. You killed her, eh? Obasi stood. Killed who? Abeni is not dead. Kenga stepped forward. You think we don't know? You've been abusing your wife for years, and now you've killed her. Obasi's jaw dropped. What? That's not true. I never laid a hand on her until today, and it was only because... Lutalo laughed coldly. Look at this grown man crying. So now you want us to believe she was beating you? Are we fools? Obasi stumbled backward. I'm not lying. I was defending myself. She attacked me first. But they didn't care. Kenga raised his fist. Let's teach him a lesson. Just as he took a step toward Obasi, a voice rang out behind them. Stop! Everyone turned. Mama Alero, the elder woman from next door, marched forward, hands planted. Firmly on her hips, you fools, she scolded. Do you even know what you're doing? Mama Alero, stay out of this, Kenga hissed. This man is a murderer. She cut him off with a glare. Murderer? Are you blind? Don't you all know what's been going on in Kamoro? Lutalo frowned. What are you saying? She pointed at Obasi. This man has been suffering for a very long time. Abeni beat him like a drum every day. Where were you all when she slapped, kicked, and humiliated him? The young men blinked, unsure. Now, because he defended himself once, just once, you want to bury him alive? Kenga looked uncertain. Wait, you mean it's true? Abeni was beating him? Mama Alero nodded. Yes. And if you lived near them, you'd know. Every night it was thud, crack, boom, and it wasn't Obasi doing the beating. The young men lowered their fists, shame creeping across their faces. Just then, a nurse ran out of the emergency room. She's awake. Obasi dashed inside. There, on the hospital bed, lay Abeni. Her eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. He moved closer. Their eyes met. He braced himself for shouting, for insults, for another storm. But Abeni simply closed her eyes and turned her face away. The next morning she was discharged. Still she said nothing to him. No anger, no apology. Just silence. She walked beside him like a shadow, clutching her handbag with both hands. Obasi kept glancing at her, waiting for the explosion, but it never came. No curses, no small man jabs, no fury. When they got home, she walked into the bedroom and lay down quietly. No slamming, no yelling. Obasi sat on the edge of the chair, suspicious. Maybe she's just tired. Maybe tomorrow the thunder will return. But the next morning she still said nothing, and when he returned home from work that evening, something strange happened. As he entered the compound, weary and tense, he whispered to himself, Let me just sneak in, bathe in peace, and chew whatever is left of supper. He reached the door. Suddenly it flung open. Abeni ran out, her eyes bright. Daddy! You're welcome, sir, she said sweetly, dropping to her knees. Obasi froze. He looked behind him. Who is she talking to? Before he could recover, she reached for his bag. You must be tired, sir. Let me help you. Obasi's jaw dropped open. Sir, what just happened? Obasi sat on the couch, still blinking in confusion, wondering if he had entered the wrong house. Abeni appeared from the kitchen, holding a cold glass of water with both hands. Yes, sir, she said sweetly. Please drink this. Let me bring your meal. Obasi stared at the glass. Is this a trap? He thought. Did she mix something in this? Before he could say a word, Abeni spun around like a well-trained waitress and disappeared into the kitchen. Moments later, she returned with a steaming tray filled with millet ugali, goat stew, and a side of spicy sukuma wiki. She knelt down respectfully and began to serve him like a royal guest. Obasi's hand trembled. Abeni, are you feeling all right? He asked cautiously. She nodded with a soft smile. Yes, sir, you need to eat well. You must regain your strength. Obasi rubbed his temples. What is going on? Did someone reset my wife? Is this spiritual? Manipulation? Or is she planning to strike when I sleep? He poked at the food like a man testing poison. But it was perfect. For the first time in many months, Abeni had served him food with care, not with noise or insults. Yet that night, Obasi could not sleep. He lay on the edge of the bed, wide awake, eyes locked on Abini, expecting her to suddenly wake up and hurl a stool at him, but she slept peacefully, like a woman without bitterness. At sunrise, she was already up. She swept the floor, prepared breakfast and even polished his shoes. Obasi had seen enough. He sat down on the bench outside their house and called her over. "Abini, please." "Let's talk." She nodded quickly and sat before him, hands folded like a schoolgirl ready for morning lessons. "Yes, sir." Obasi exhaled. "Why have you been calling me sir like I'm your boss?" Abeni lowered her gaze. "Because you deserve it." Obasi narrowed his eyes. "No, no, no. Where is my wife? Who are you and what have you done with her?" She gave a deep sigh. "It's me, Obasi. I am your wife, and I know. I have been a terrible one. I treated you like a houseboy. I mocked you, hurt you, humiliated you. I thought you were weak. But now I see I was the one who was blind." Obasi leaned back. "So, you just woke up and decided to become a humble wife?" Abini shook her head slowly. "No. It was the day I hit the floor." He tilted his head. "What do you mean?" She looked away for a second, then spoke gently. "When I collapsed, I had a dream. I saw myself lying in a dark, cold place. A voice whispered, 'If you don't change, this is how your story will end.' I woke up trembling. That's when I realized I was destroying not just my marriage, but myself." Obasi sat silently, absorbing her words. "So, you mean this change is real?" She nodded again. "Yes, my love. I want to be the woman you deserve." Obasi took a deep breath. Then he did something unexpected. He reached out and held her hands. "Abeni," he said softly, "I also need to say sorry. You hurt me, yes, but I should have spoken up earlier. I should have asked for help before things went too far." Abeni blinked away her tears. "No, Obasi, it's me who should apologize. You were kind, patient. You never hit me back even when I gave you every reason to. You are a far better person than I ever was." Obasi smiled gently. "Then let's begin again, my wife." From that day forward, Abeni transformed. She never insulted Obasi again, never laid a hand on him. She spoke with kindness, served him with joy, and respected him in a way she never had before. The neighbors couldn't believe it. Mama Kito, the old woman who lived 2 doors down, nearly dropped her pot when she saw Abeni kneeling to serve Obasi hot yam and tea. "Is that really Abeni?" she whispered. Another neighbor stood frozen outside her doorway when she saw Abeni scrubbing Obasi's clothes with care. "What is going on in that house?" she muttered. "Did a prophet visit them?" Even the men were puzzled. "Obasi," said Jabali one day, "what did you use on your wife? Is it some charm from the elders?" But Obasi simply laughed. "Let's just say the Most High knows how to restore peace." And peace it was. For the first time in months, Obasi sat in his own home and felt like it truly belonged to him. The weight on his chest had lifted. The silence between them no longer carried fear, but peace. Their story became a whispered tale. In Kamoro, and to those who asked, Obasi always smiled and said, "Home is now home again."